2024, a year of unforgettable moments.
The NHL is here. Let's go, Utah.
One historic announcement after another.
We're back, baby. The Olympics are coming back to Utah.
12 months of some high highs and some heartbreaking lows.
We take solace knowing that Bill died a hero.
A heroic police sergeant killed in the line of duty.
It broke my heart to know that he died that way.
A 12-year-old boy's life cut short, his own family members charged with his death. And a man accused with intentionally hitting 6 women with his car.
I could have lost my wife and my daughter at the scene of it in 1 minute.
Big explosions causing damage, claiming lives.
Just massive, loud boom and shook the whole house.
But as 2024 comes to a close, moments of natural beauty.
That's the Northern Line.
And the determination of some high school students.
We did everything aimed towards Footloose to get Kevin Bacon here.
Proving anything is possible in 2025.
I'm gonna come. I gotta come.
Welcome to this Year in Review special. We're taking a look back at some of the biggest stories of 2024. In May, a crime that shocked and devastated Utahns all across the state.
Santaquin Police Sergeant Bill Hooser lost his life in the line of duty. New special Stan Rascone looking back now on what happened on that dreadful day and the legacy Sergeant Hooser left behind.
Our entire department is hurt.
May of 2024, a lone patrol car covered with flowers sits out in front of the Santaquin Police Department, remembering the life and service of 50-year-old Sergeant Bill Hooser.
We're going to say our I love yous and our goodbye.
Leaving a community heartbroken.
He just was always looking after, like all of us.
And in shock.
You hear it happen in other states, other cities, and you think it's not going to be us. Never us, and then and then it is us.
A devoted police officer and family man.
And Bill was my big brother. Although nothing could never make up for the loss we feel, we take solace knowing that Bill died a hero.
Hooser was tragically killed by a semi-truck along I-15 when he was responding to a call for help. Investigators say the driver, 42-year-old Michael Jane, intentionally turned his truck around on the freeway and hit Hooser.
I will miss him so much. Sorry. This has been terrible for our family. Our hearts are shattered.
His family finding strength in each other and the community who rallied around them.
The things that made Bill a wonderful cop, a wonderful police officer, also made him a wonderful human being, and that's who we're grieving today. He leaves behind 2 beautiful daughters, a granddaughter, a wife, brothers, sisters.
On Monday, May 13th, Sergeant Bill Hooser was laid to rest. Hundreds filled the UCCU Event Center at Utah Valley University to say their goodbyes.
I know he died doing what he loved to do.
His daughters speaking publicly for the first time since losing their dad.
Never could I have asked for a better man to be my dad. I just long for the day I get to see his beautiful face again.
It's gonna be a long one, another graveyard shift.
We thank you for your dedication and service to the citizens of Santaquin City, Utah County, and the state of Utah, and to the United States of America. Your life of service and your ultimate sacrifice will never be forgotten. End of watch, May 5th, 2024.
That was Dan Rascone reporting. Utah County prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against the man accused of killing Sergeant Hooser.
A Utah Highway Patrol trooper had a brush with death when he fell off a bridge while on duty in February. But miraculously, he survived, and he just returned to work a few weeks ago.
Getting back and being around your buddies and friends and just great people and being able to feel like you're actually accomplishing something.
For Steve, Odie Myer was laying spike traps on I-80 when a suspect swerved towards him. To get out of the way, he jumped without realizing the distance of the fall. Myer suffered hip, pelvis, and shoulder injuries. His heart was ripped from its cavity on impact. After 10 months and tons of rehab, Myer is back to work on office duty.
Now to a high-profile triple murder case KSL covered extensively. Chad Daybell was sentenced to death for the killings of his late wife and two of his second wife's children. News Specialist Tamara Vaifanua looks back on the trial and reaction to the guilty verdict.
Idaho jurors endured 2 months of graphic testimony from dozens of witnesses and then found Chad Daybell guilty on 3 counts of murder and conspiracy to commit murder in the deaths of first wife Tammy Daybell and the 2 youngest children of his second wife, Joshua J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Daybell was also found guilty of 2 counts of insurance fraud for maxing out Tammy's life insurance policy the month before she died.
The last 4 days of the trial were extremely emotionally draining.
2 days later, jurors sentenced the 55-year-old religious book author to the death penalty. He displayed little or no emotion. The 3 killings happened in a matter of weeks back in 2019. In September, investigators believed Tylee and JJ were killed. Then the next month, Tammy Daybell was found dead in her Idaho home. Initially, her death was reported to be from natural causes, but investigators later ruled it a homicide after her body was exhumed from a Utah County cemetery. Less than a month after Tammy's death, Chad married Lori Vallow in Hawaii.
Money, power, and sex. That's what the defendant cared about.
Prosecutors painted Daybell as someone infatuated with apocalyptic thoughts who wanted to start a new life with his second wife, Lori Daybell, after having an affair with her.
Today is a sweet justice for us.
After the verdict, Tammy's family thanked the jurors.
I offer my sincere gratitude to you as a family member of a victim.
And the brother of JJ and Tylee looking to close a painful chapter.
It doesn't change the outcome, but it is good news and it brings closure for everybody that's been hurt.
Lori Vallow Daybell was convicted in the same case last year and is serving 3 life in prison sentences without the possibility of parole. For KSL News, I'm Tamara Vaifanua.
Tamara, thank you. Now to another tragic case, this one out of northern Utah. A 12-year-old boy died from abuse and malnutrition despite school workers reporting it to DCFS. 3 of his family members are now charged with his death. News specialist Garna Mejia has the story of Gavin Peterson.
The memorial started with a single teddy bear and a balloon tied to a fence in front of 12-year-old Gavin Peterson's home in West Haven, where on July 9th, responding deputies found him dying on the bathroom floor.
The abuse that is alleged in these court documents, it is very difficult to hear and to comprehend.
As news of the arrest of his father, stepmother, and oldest brother broke, that memorial grew. Gavin's school district released this statement saying in part, multiple complaints were filed by school employees with the Utah Division of Child and Family Services related to suspected abuse and neglect of this child.
I was heartbroken.
Staff from Gavin's school also started sharing their stories.
I just believe he was so hungry that he was stealing other people's food. You would see him digging through the garbage.
I could not let a child eat food from the trash. I just couldn't.
And Gavin's family, his sister and mother, also started speaking out.
It broke my heart to know that he died that way.
Alleging the system had not just failed Gavin, but his older sister, Maylani Peterson, who suffered similar abuse by her stepmother, Nicole Scott, and father, Shane Peterson.
They would starve me until I was really skinny.
The case prompted public outcry and protests as legislators promised an investigation into DCFS.
We've heard from school lunch workers that actually went above and beyond.
Why did nothing happen?
In an effort for greater transparency, DCFS released one of its most detailed reports with a case-specific timeline of the agency's interactions with Gavin's family.
We all are driven by the same outcome of keeping kids healthy and safe.
Calls to DCFS on Gavin's behalf started in February of 2020, with the latest investigation in 2023. DCFS confirmed they interviewed Gavin at school and met with his father and stepmother, but the case was eventually closed as unsupported in May 2023. DCFS's post-death investigation concluded Gavin was a victim of severe and chronic abuse by Shane, Nicole, and his oldest brother, Tyler Peterson. The 3 are now facing criminal charges in his death. For KSL 5 News, I'm Garna Mejia.
I just got hit. Oh my gosh, I just got hit.
Terrifying moment for a church youth group after a bolt of lightning slams into the wet ground in Sevier County. That shock felt by 50 members of that group as they were hiking in Salina Canyon. This was back in June. 7 teens had to be rushed to the hospital.
I feel like I didn't really tell because when it happened, I saw the light and then it just felt like a baseball or something hit the top of my head. And so that's all I really felt.
Group says the weather changed unexpectedly. When the strike hit, one teen was knocked to the ground. He told KSL it was a miracle everyone made it out alive.
There had to be some divine intervention because there's no way that, I just get knocked out on the ground and the next day I'm perfectly fine.
Unbelievable. Okay. Major milestone in the renovation of the Salt Lake City Temple, and a new Greek Orthodox church opens its doors for the first time.
Religion specialist Carol Makita has a look at the stories that topped ecclesiastical headlines this year.
Following years of construction, Salt Lake's Temple Square saw some meaningful milestones. The Main Street Plaza reopened in January, and the Angel Moroni statue returned to the top of the temple in April. In February, the Provo Temple closed for reconstruction, and shortly after, the 52-year-old building was demolished. 6 new Utah temples were dedicated this year in Utah, including the church's 200th operating temple. And President Russell M. Nelson announced 32 new temples this year, including 3 more in Utah. The Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square traveled to the Philippines in February. Special guests Broadway singer Leah Salonga and Filipino youth group joined the choir. In September, the choir traveled to Florida and Georgia, performing with Glee Club members from Morehouse and Spelman Colleges and with Broadway star Kristen Chenoweth. In June, the choir sang an emotional farewell to Lloyd Newell, the announcer and writer of the choir's weekly broadcast, Music and the Spoken Word, for 34 years. 1 week later, Derek Porter debuted on the broadcast as the voice of the choir. St. Anna Greek Orthodox Church in Sandy opened its doors in July after 5 years of construction. Over the past few years, the parish has grown from 60 families to now more than 200. And in October, parishioners of Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Cathedral celebrated its 100th anniversary with church dignitaries and community leaders. In September, Latter-day Saints celebrated President Nelson's 100th birthday. Rather than gifts, he asked church members to serve others. Also in September, thousands gathered at the Carmelite Monastery in Holladay for the annual fair. The cloistered nuns raise funds from this event as their main financial support. In October, thousands of Catholic faithful attended Mass and a special veneration for the arm of St. Jude, a holy relic which came to the U.S. for the first time, visiting St. Ambrose Catholic Church. In November, the Temple Square Christmas lights came on in many areas previously closed because of construction. And in December, the First Presidency delivered its annual Christmas message declaring, "At this joyful time of year, we are grateful to celebrate with you the birth of our Savior Jesus Christ." Carol Makita, KSL 5 News.
Thank you, Carol. Up next, bringing back the games. A look back at the historic announcement that will have Utah hosting the Winter Olympics a second time.
Plus, with NHL hockey moving to Utah in 2024, plans in place to build an entertainment district around the Delta Center. The impact it's going to have on taxpayers starting in 2025. It has been a banner year for the future of sports here in Utah. Pro hockey team moves on in. The Olympic Games are officially making a return, and the Utah Jazz striking a deal to stay right here in Salt Lake City. That deal includes plans to build an entertainment district around the arena.
News specialist Brian Carlson looks back at how big 2024 was for the Smith Entertainment Group.
Who would have known at the start of the year, professional hockey had big plans for Utah?
The NHL is thrilled to be coming to Utah.
I think this crowd is ready for hockey.
The NHL is here. Let's go, Utah.
Utah Jazz owners Ryan and Ashley Smith purchased the Arizona Coyotes and moved the team to Salt Lake for Utah's first NHL team. For now, the Utah Hockey Club, sharing the Delta Center with the Jazz. To keep both teams downtown took some wheeling and dealing.
This is the right thing, and NHL needs to be downtown. The Utah Jazz need to stay downtown.
In May, we learned of the Smith Entertainment Group's plans to revitalize downtown Salt Lake, converting the Delta Center and the 2 blocks east of it into a sports entertainment district, renovating the Salt Palace, rerouting streets and more to create a walkable corridor from the Delta Center to City Creek. To help fund it, Salt Lake made a deal allowing SEG to seek $900 million in public bonds, and the city raising sales tax 0.5% over 30 years to pay it back, cementing the Jazz downtown.
And with this partnership agreement, we accomplished that goal and so much more.
But creating questions for the future of Abravanel Hall.
We're all united in our goal of preserving Abravanel Hall as is.
The deal coming just as the inaugural hockey season was about to begin. We're getting our first look at the new ice the team will be skating on in their preseason home opener. KSL's Carol Makita securing the exclusive interview with Ryan and Ashley Smith on making it all happen. They even surprised themselves.
And so the fact that if you would have told us at the beginning of the year that we'd be sitting here with a hockey puck dropping in Utah in less than 100 days, it was on no one's bingo card.
When the first puck finally dropped on October 8th,
Soren carries it across, drops one, shot,
Utah became a hockey town with its home downtown.
Brian Smith says the goal of the new entertainment district is bringing people together. And that was Brian Carlson reporting. There will be no bigger opportunity to do that, to bring people together, than in 2034 when the Olympics return to Utah. Months ago, Salt Lake was officially named the host city.
It was a celebration decades in the making.
The 27th Olympic Winter Games 2034 are awarded to Salt Lake City, Utah.
Announced in the early morning hours, appropriately, on the 24th of July, Utah's statehood day.
I want to be at downtown when they announce it.
Crowds packed the 3 a.m. announcement party in Washington Square, hoping to relive the Olympic excitement. Emily Phillips has dreamed about it ever since Utah hosted the games in 2002.
My 10-year-old heart was like, this is the best thing ever that I've ever seen.
In 1995, they announced the 2002 Olympics, and I stood in this very spot.
For other Utahns who weren't here then or weren't born yet, it will be the event of a lifetime.
I wanted these guys to experience the same thing and just be part of the moment and part of history.
For bid organizers, it was reward for years of hard work.
Well, I just felt one weight go off my shoulders and another one come on. But now that we have the games, it's just, we're joy.
We're back, baby. The Olympics are coming back to Utah.
Utah's selling points have always been that our venues are in constant use and ready to go. And those venues have offered a world-class training ground for a generation of athletes.
I'll be 27, which is a decent age to be in the Olympics, so hopefully I'll be able to participate, and if not, it would be really cool to at least watch from my hometown and see all the amazing athletes come out here.
Utah also boasts a volunteer effort second to none that helped make the 2002 games a resounding success. Now, the real work is underway to become one of the few cities to host the world for a second time. Organizers have no doubt by 2034 we'll be ready.
And being able to welcome the world as Utah uniquely can is so special.
A shocking crime, all caught on camera. A driver accused of hitting 6 different women with his car on purpose. Hear from those who were targeted. Plus,
home explosions. There were several in Utah this year. A look back at the devastation they caused.
I was horrified, and I realized that this guy had targeted her.
One of 2024's most shocking crimes was caught on camera. A driver accused of plowing into people with his car on purpose. That story unraveled with each case we reported. A serial hit-and-run suspect who appeared to be targeting women across the Wasatch Front.
News Special Sheriff Park reported on those very first cases, which helped investigators connect the dots.
They were simply women out walking.
The car came out of nowhere and hit us.
In several Salt Lake County neighborhoods.
Seemed weird that he was coming right at us.
When their lives were put on the line.
I could have lost my wife and my daughter at the scene of it in 1 minute.
These brave families speaking out to KSL TV after being hit by a white vehicle helped connect the dots for law enforcement across the state. That one man may be responsible for them all.
Good morning, Your Honor.
26-year-old An Pham was arrested in a damaged white car just days after a woman was critically injured on March 11th while crossing at 600 West North Temple. He's since remained behind bars, facing 9 first-degree felony charges of attempted murder for targeting women in 6 hit-and-run cases, including this one in the Avenues on March 12th that was caught on home security cameras.
I was horrified, and I realized that this guy had targeted her. I mean, you could see him. It was an actual hit.
This is intentional behavior. This is targeted behavior. And in some cases, we've alleged that it even indicates sort of predatory behavior.
As investigators continue to review hit-and-run cases from the past year, it's possible Pham could face more charges. His attorneys are currently having him evaluated to determine if he's competent to stand trial. His next court appearance is January 17th.
It's just by grace of God that nobody has died thus far.
For Year in Review, I'm Shara Park.
Shara, thank you. A crime shocking southern Utah. 2 people found dead in a Washington County home and an hours-long manhunt for the suspect. News specialist Kara Bracken was there when the arrest was made. Now takes us back to how everything unfolded.
Neighbors knew there were signs of trouble.
There was already volatility and bad vibes going within the family.
Court documents confirming it. The documents identified the suspected shooter as Mia Bailey. Responding officers arrived to find Bailey's mother, Gail Bailey, and father, Joseph Bailey, dead inside the home with multiple gunshot wounds. Richard Ziskovici, a neighbor who lives down the street from where the shooting unfolded, told us he was at home when the bullets started flying, telling us Bailey's brother and his wife were also home at the time and had to run for their own lives.
They escaped and were in my neighbor's basement to get away.
Court documents confirmed this, stating Bailey's brother and wife made a 911 call from a neighbor's home. Officers arrived and began searching for Bailey. Neighbors told to shelter in place during the hours-long manhunt. She wasn't spotted until the next morning. KSL was there the moment Bailey surrendered. Chopper 5 capturing this video of the moment she was taken into police custody.
I'm so glad that it turned out how it did and that nobody else was harmed.
Officers saying after her arrest, Bailey showed no signs of remorse.
This isn't the end for her, right? We want to make sure that she knows that and that we're going to treat her the correct way and in a fair way. Make sure, our justice system is followed and that she gets the respect that she needs.
As Kara Bracken reporting, Bailey now faces 11 felony charges, including 2 counts of murder. Bailey will be in court in February.
Utah had its first execution in 14 years in 2024. Tabron Honey was put to death by lethal injection in August. As KSL investigator Courtney Johns explains, the death sentence was carried out 30 years after he brutally murdered Claudia Ben.
Tabram, you robbed us. Totally robbed us.
Just weeks before his execution, loved ones faced Tabron Honey recounting what happened the night he killed Claudia Ben in 1998. Honey admitted to breaking into her Cedar City home and stabbing her in front of her 3 young grandchildren.
And I've waited for this day to come for the last 26 years.
Spending more years behind bars than a free man, his path to execution was filled with appeals and legal challenges, including over the method itself. Utah law specifies sodium thiopental as the drug for lethal injection, but it's widely unavailable, which prompted medical staff at Utah's Department of Corrections to come up with a new, never-tested 3-drug cocktail. Ketamine, an anesthetic, fentanyl for pain, and potassium chloride to stop the heart.
Mr. Honey is here today asking for your mercy and your grace.
Honey filed a lawsuit arguing the novel combination would constitute cruel and unusual punishment. Instead, his legal team suggested the scarce drug pentobarbital, and the state managed to find a source.
We did have people reach out to us who said that they would be able to supply that, and we decided to go that route.
What that route entailed, no one really knows, because Utah law prohibits officials from releasing that information.
It absolutely is from a reliable source, and we are confident in what we are getting.
Inside the new prison on August 8th, the execution chamber was used for the first time, with Honey saying his final goodbyes just after midnight.
He raised up his head and looked over to where his family was viewing and just said, "I love you."
That was Courtney Johns reporting. In the last 12 months here, we have seen 3 major home explosions in Utah. 2 were deadly, and the other one left an entire neighborhood damaged. In November, a natural gas leak is blamed for causing this scene in South Jordan. The explosion killing a 15-year-old boy. Investigators say the leak was found 150 feet from the house, and gas was also detected underground as far as 200 feet from the leak. And in American Fork, a home explosion claiming the life of a 78-year-old woman. This was back in March. A final report says it was caused by a furnace malfunction. Investigators add it could have been prevented if a Dominion Energy worker who was at the house the day before had properly tested for leaks.
A massive explosion in Holladay was set off on purpose.
Crews detonated 50 sticks of ancient dynamite that they found inside of a home. In the aftermath, proved impactful to multiple families.
News specialist Andrew Adams shows us what unfolded as a neighborhood was evacuated in the middle of the night.
28 years in the fire service, I've never seen this.
It began on April 23rd.
This is pretty impressive in scope.
As crews quietly shut down a Holladay neighborhood.
Currently, we have an evacuation plan in place.
After hours of uncertainty, firefighters made a stunning disclosure about what was found inside a home.
So I can tell you right now that it is ancient dynamite, a lot.
First responders came to the conclusion they were going to have to conduct a controlled detonation.
They've gone to great lengths to ensure that we can pull this off as safely as possible without risk to community or surrounding structures.
But as day turned to night, police began evacuating dozens of houses.
I'm apprehensive that my windows might be broken, yes. Because that's what the policeman said when we were leaving. It might break windows.
The detonation couldn't wait.
The bomb techs feel that it's unstable to wait until in the morning, and so hence our course of action.
The explosion was captured from multiple angles. But in the end, it only meant one thing for nearby neighbors: damage.
Windows need to be replaced, potential roof, because when it exploded, it dumped a lot of debris, not only on our house, but it even made it further down in the neighborhood.
In the days that followed, everyone learned there was more than dynamite housed here.
We had acids, bases, solvents, a bunch of ethers, which were some of the more concerning chemicals because they become shock sensitive.
Family members say the man who lived here, a retired chemist from the U who since passed away, was something of a collector.
Apparently, he brought it back from Oregon from his dad that came from the farm. Back in the day, dynamite was just a normal farm tool.
His widow said the entire ordeal began with a simple discovery.
First, it was just a mercury spill, because he was making his own thermometer.
And in the end, she never expected the situation to blow up like it did.
I apologize for the inconvenience. I mean, this was definitely not planned.
For the year in review, Andrew Adams, KSL 5 News.
All right, Andrew, thank you for that. It has been 9 months since the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints purchased the Kirtland Temple, along with some other historic properties and artifacts. So why is this history so important, and how will the church use it as they move forward? I took a trip to the sacred sites in Kirtland and Nauvoo to find out. It is where some of the most significant events in the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints took place.
I believe that wherever deity stands or appears,
there's something about the ground that changes.
And that, right there, is why this, the first temple built by the church, is so significant.
This is a big deal. These sites are among the most sacred in the church. And because they're so sacred to our church, I'd almost say they're so sacred to the world.
And understanding that sacredness is to first understand the history. After persecution and apostasy, the early saints fled northeastern Ohio in the late 1830s, bound for Nauvoo. Much of Kirtland was left behind, the temple included, with different parties controlling access to the temple over the years.
They put the temple up for sale. I've got a little clip of the advertising for it.
A split-off from the original faith, the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, now known as Community of Christ, eventually secured title to the Kirtland Temple, who has cared for and owned it ever since.
They have done an incredible job maintaining that space and keeping it historic.
We're so close to many of the members of the Community of Christ, and we know how much they love the temple and how much it means to them.
And that is why the transaction to sell the Kirtland Temple in March of this year,
it was one of those moments like, wow, this is really happening.
Was a moment many in the LDS Church were never quite sure
I was shocked
would ever happen.
And I couldn't believe it. I just was overwhelmed.
The $192 million acquisition also including historical buildings and artifacts in Nauvoo and Independence. So, what now? Well, first, it is clear the spiritual events attached to these pieces of history is valuable, and giving folks a chance to look at and physically walk through the history,
prayer, fasting, faith,
is priceless.
It's humbling to think not only this is where Joseph did his work, but this is where that marvelous manifestation happened.
One of our duties as Christians, as children of God, is to remember the things God has done, to remember His mercy.
For us as Latter-day Saints, remembering is a sacred act. And the only reason that we have historic sites as a church is to help us as Latter-day Saints remember what God has done for us as a people.
Still to come, a spectacular sight in the sky, the light show that left Utahns awestruck.
And bringing a superstar back to Utah, the Bacon to Payson campaign that paid off big for a group of Utah high school students.
Donald Trump is now the president-elect as voters made their voices heard in the general election.
Several key state races were also up for grabs. News specialist Daniel Woodruff has the highlights of Decision 2024.
A busy year in politics, both nationally and here in Utah. 2024 started with a slew of candidates filing to run in races up and down the ballot. Some big seats were up for grabs this year, including U.S. Senate, held by Mitt Romney, who did not run for re-election.
Let's make this happen.
11 Republicans jumped in the race. Just one emerged victorious, John Curtis, who eventually defeated Democrat Caroline Gleich and joins the Senate in just a few weeks.
The good news is they have 7 years of knowing who John Curtis is in Congress, and I don't think there's any surprises.
With Curtis's seat in Congress open, another crowded field of candidates rushed to replace him. The eventual winner, Republican State Senator Mike Kennedy.
I'm not going there to be another headline. I'm going as a healer.
Utah voters gave Governor Spencer Cox a second term, but it was closer than he might have liked, thanks to a primary and write-in challenge from fellow Republican Phil Lyman.
We were not elected to just represent the people who voted for us. We were elected to represent everyone in the state of Utah.
Meanwhile, candidates ran for state legislature all across Utah. But in the end, Republicans and Democrats still hold the same number of seats they did before. Speaking of the legislature, the Republican supermajority got swatted down a few times this year by the courts over an abortion law and some proposed constitutional amendments that ended up getting voided.
Donald J. Trump!
Finally, Utahns cast their ballots in the highly watched presidential race, giving all 6 of the state's electoral votes to President-elect Donald Trump. That's just some of what happened in politics in 2024. Daniel Woodruff, KSL 5 News.
Thank you, Daniel. KSL's public records fight for access to the Utah Attorney General's work calendar came to a close in 2024.
After 2 years, Sean Reyes' office agreed to hand over the calendar. KSL investigative reporter Daniela Rivera shows us how we got to this point.
It started with a routine records request in November 2022. The KSL investigators wanted to see Attorney General Sean Reyes' official work calendar. Even though other elected and public officials have shared copies of their calendars with KSL journalists, Reyes' office said no. So KSL producer Annie Knox took our request to Utah's State Records Committee, where members decided, according to Utah's public records law, the calendar should be released. But Reyes' efforts to keep you from seeing what he's been up to in office didn't end there. The AG's office took the KSL investigators to court to avoid releasing the calendar.
It's unfortunate that his office is fighting to keep the public from knowing this basic information.
Can I ask you a quick question about why you're fighting to keep your work calendar secret from the public? Sean, why are you
to keep a work calendar?
We caught up with Reyes in St. George in November 2023, a year after our initial request.
I can tell you, as far as calendars, those aren't records. They never have been. And I don't think they are currently.
In February 2024, a judge disagreed. He sided with the KSL investigators and the State Records Committee's interpretation of Utah law and ordered the release of the calendar. That day, we requested more of the calendar. But hours later, Utah lawmakers rushed to change the law, making all public and elected officials' calendars secret moving forward. A bill Utah Governor Spencer Cox signed the next day.
The AG's calendar was a public record when Ms. Knox made her request, and it remains a presumptively public record today.
Our new request landed us back in front of the State Records Committee in September, where members once again decided in favor of transparency.
The records should be released.
After fighting to keep the records from the public on the taxpayers' dime for nearly 2 years, Reyes' office settled the case in November and released more than 9,000 pages of calendar entries to the KSL investigators. But that victory is short-lived. KSL News Director Leona Wood called the move by Utah's legislature and governor to restrict the public's access to calendars going forward disappointing.
We want the public to benefit from the transparency that we fought for.
Daniela Rivera, KSL 5 News.
Daniela, thank you. Coming up next here, bringing home the bacon. Back to Payson, the return of Hollywood star 40 years after his movie was shot here in Utah, and how a group of determined high schoolers pulled this off.
Winter weather has many Utahns thinking twice before hitting the road. The 2 ways to make sure your tires are up to the task. Plus, a legendary Weber County landmark getting erased. What the city has in store and how you can play a role in the future at 5.
Hi, Susan. You haven't seen or heard from you?
We would like to locate Joyce.
Cherie Warren disappeared.
We want answers as much as anyone else.
Thanks to a rare, very large geomagnetic storm, we got an unusually vibrant look at the northern lights this past year.
And then it seemed to just keep coming back more often. News specialist Mike Anderson has a look back at what we saw and why.
We thought we got lucky back in April.
The last time I remember seeing one was early 2000, maybe 2001, 2002.
Patrick Wiggins, a NASA ambassador to the state of Utah, caught a look one night from the Harmons Observatory in Stansbury Park.
So this one really punched through and it came down, and so we got to see a bunch of stuff. Just not as colorful as, say, the people way up north.
But then an even bigger opportunity, May 10th.
I'd like to say the sun burped. If you want to use the fancy term, it's called a coronal mass ejection, now CME. And they happen from time to time, and occasionally they're pointed at the Earth.
This time, a really big one, the likes of which not seen in Utah for nearly 20 years. And the viewer photos rolled in.
You're seeing nitrogen and oxygen molecules in the atmosphere start to vibrate and get really excited, they call it, and that's what causes the fluorescence in the atmosphere. That's the northern lights.
A much more vibrant look than we're used to seeing this far south. Otherwise, we do get the occasional peek at the aurora borealis, maybe 2 times during most years. You can watch out for the next opportunity through the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Space Weather Prediction Center online. Mike Anderson, KSL 5 News.
Yeah, that was really cool to see.
Beautiful.
40 years ago, the movie made Kevin Bacon a superstar. And this year, students at Payson High School started an all-out campaign to get bacon to Payson one more time.
We all love bacon, don't we? We're talking, of course, about Footloose and the main actor, Kevin Bacon. His new specialist, Debbie Worthen, shows us the students convinced him to come on back to where it all began.
Now I gotta cut loose, Footloose, kicked off the Sunday shoes.
This iconic dance scene happened long before the Payson High School class of 2024 was born, but they all know the movie, and early in the school year, they started a campaign to get Kevin Bacon back. The students sent Bacon a letter, created a hashtag and website to get his attention. They didn't stop there. They planned a humanitarian project for Bacon's foundation, 6 Degrees.
We just made this whole school year the Footloose year, and so every event we've done has been in theme with Footloose. We did a Footloose movie stadium night, the Footloose musical. We did everything aimed towards Footloose to get Kevin Bacon here.
They even commissioned Utah Governor Spencer Cox to get in on the effort.
Mr. Bacon, I'm Governor Spencer Cox from the great state of Utah. Can I call you Kevin?
Then, in March, the good news. In front of a packed gym and live on the Today Show, Kevin Bacon gave the students the news they had worked for.
I'm gonna come. I gotta come.
The students were ecstatic. Just weeks later, the day of prom. Kevin Bacon made that highly anticipated return to Payson High School, where the students assembled community kits side by side with Bacon, a day they will never forget.
Like, he cares about these people and he cares about like what we're doing here, and so it's so cool to work with somebody that big, and then it just pushes us so much further and gets us to really where we want to be, and it's cool.
Bacon credits the students' grit to convincing him to return.
I think seeing I've seen the commitment to turn it into a day of giving and fundraising and good positive energy. Look, you just can't turn that down.
For the students, their Footloose-themed prom capped off their year of hard work of bringing Bacon to Payson. Debbie Worthen, KSL 5 News.
See, that's proof right there just how awesome the 80s were. And I'm glad that these kids got to experience that.
Yep. Well, here's hoping we have a lot more moments, a lot of things to celebrate and to bring our community together like that.
Let's certainly hope so. Thanks for watching, everyone, and let's hope for a fantastic 2025.
Yeah. Happy holidays.